Hey, I'm Noah Fay, and welcome to Florida Focus, the latest show from Florida Family Voice. We are doing a series of videos breaking down the amendments that you are going to see on your 2024 election ballot. And we've done 1 and 2, and today is Amendment 3.
Yeah.
Joining me today is Aaron DiPietro. Aaron,
Yeah.
let's get into it.
So let's break this down. You want to read the summary on Amendment 3 here?
I think
Go
I
for it.
drew the short straw having to read all these things. Here we go. All right, so this is the adult personal use of marijuana. This allows adults 21 years or older to possess, purchase, or use marijuana products and marijuana accessories for non-medical personal consumption by smoking, ingestion, or otherwise. Allows medical marijuana treatment centers and other state licensed entities to acquire, cultivate, process, manufacture, sell, and distribute such products and accessories. Applies to Florida law. Does not change or See, this is where my 4th grade education is coming out. Immunize violations of federal law. Establishes possession limits for personal use. Allows consistent legislation. Defines terms and provides effective date.
So breaking that down, and unfortunately that ballot summary is very misleading in terms of what the actual effects of the amendment are going to be. So Florida Family Voice is recommending very strongly a no vote on Amendment 3 for multiple reasons. First of all, there's no when you look at the guidelines and the implementation procedures within the amendment text, both on the summary and in the actual amendment text that'll be added to our Constitution, there are the guidelines and parameters for actually how to enforce this amendment from a law enforcement perspective are extremely vague and misleading. So, for instance, how will a police officer be able to determine, how a person, if a person is high while driving? We have the standards that, for instance, are in place for something like alcohol here in the state of Florida. This Amendment 3 does not provide for those enforcement mechanisms to be able to ensure that law enforcement is keeping people that are high off the streets and out of driving. So we don't have those procedures. Think about health and safety workplace violations. Somebody's driving, is high driving a forklift. We don't have clear protections to ensure that things like that doesn't happen within this amendment. And there's actually an argument to be made as well. We talk about, I know a lot of people have talked about Florida not wanting to become Colorado or California, where you're smelling recreational marijuana around every street corner. There's actually some of the opponents of this amendment are pointing out some of the loopholes in this language that the regulations on public smoking of medical marijuana may actually not apply to the recreational marijuana usage. So whereas the state legislature may be able to regulate the public consumption and smoking of medical marijuana, it's not very clear in the amendment text if those same prohibitions can apply to recreational marijuana, which would be an absolute disaster. I think we can all agree here in the state of Florida. Again, it's going to put us in direct conflict with federal law as well. Currently, what this Florida constitutional amendment is seeking to do would actually, if people were to actually, follow that and choose to use recreational marijuana, it would put them in violation of federal law. So there's a major conflict there. And on top of that, it is creating, and this has been demonstrated by study after study, and was even acknowledged by Colorado Attorney General personally, that the legalization, and I'll go into a little detail here why, but actually the legalization of recreational marijuana will lead to the rise of the black market. Now, it sounds strange, but you would think legalizing recreational marijuana would get more people away from the black market. But actually, and this applies distinctly to Florida as well, because the methods for selling the recreational marijuana and the control of distribution are handed to a small group of almost semi-monopoly companies that will control the entire production and distribution, which will jack up prices. You'll add extra taxes and fees. So when you're having people that are now used to legal recreational marijuana, when they see the black market pop up, it's going to be a lot less expensive. And we're actually seeing, I think the Attorney General of Colorado put it, that the black market has been hiding in plain sight with legalized recreational marijuana in the state of Colorado, and it's been skyrocketing. So again, multiple study after study, both from a scholarly perspective and anecdotally as well, I can testify personally, the effects on an extended family member of marijuana psychosis and just the dangerous effects of long-term, again, and even if you agree with recreational marijuana legalization, you need to realize what most of the supporters of recreational marijuana think they want and think this amendment is, it is not. It is creating a semi-monopoly of recreational marijuana, and basically local farmers aren't going to be able to grow marijuana. You're not going to be able to grow it in your vegetable garden. It's still legalizes that, so it's handing it to a small group of
I had a question for you in this because something you were saying about the public use of marijuana. Is it currently illegal to publicly use medical marijuana?
Yes, that is, or the legislature is allowed to do that. Yes, so there's restrictions and guidelines on that. In this amendment text, it is not clear. It is not clear. In fact,
Because there's laws that you can't publicly drink, right?
correct. Yes,
Like you can't, no open container kind of thing.
correct. So actually, even I'm glad you brought that up because the comparison between alcohol and marijuana, there's many differences. Obviously, I'm not going to get into all the detailed medical differences, but one of the differences just with Amendment 3 itself is that it's almost creating a separate class for marijuana, recreational marijuana use, even from medical marijuana, and very distinct even from things like alcohol, which I would argue medical marijuana or recreational marijuana is much more dangerous and harmful to society as a whole than alcohol. But even if you wanted to make the assumption that they're one and the same, this amendment does not provides a lot of loopholes in terms of the regulation of recreational marijuana that is not what we see in the alcohol industry or even in the medical marijuana industry. So I think it could be argued, and I know many leaders in our state have argued that it actually
seems
is
like
even broader and more dangerous than
it seems like
marijuana.
the argument you're making is not that recreational marijuana is inherently wrong. It's that because it's hard to regulate, like alcohol is easier to regulate, there's a lot of problems that could arise from specifically this amendment to legalize recreational marijuana.
I think there could definitely be arguments on the morality of recreational marijuana. But even aside from the morality of it, the effects of recreational marijuana that have been clearly documented are extremely dangerous across the nation. And these aren't just anecdotal pie in the sky stories. We have states that we can have documented evidence of the applications of recreational marijuana. And again, even beyond that, even for those who do agree with recreational marijuana legalization, this amendment goes even further beyond that in terms of allowing almost unregulated and limitless recreational marijuana use. And it's very vague. And again, if proponents of the amendment come back and say, "Oh, that's not true," then why didn't you define it in the amendment? Why is it not clear? Why is it not properly outlined in there what the government's role is to be able to regulate this?
Is marijuana currently decriminalized in Florida?
No.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll ask you this question, then I don't know if you'll have an answer for it. I feel like I see and smell all the people on the beach, in the park, in their cars all the time with marijuana. Is there just not a big push for law enforcement to enforce the laws?
There's a huge part of it. When we see the rise in, generally across the nation, the rise in the focus of law enforcement at targeting violent crime, in many cases, a lot of the effects, a lot of the violent crime effects of recreational marijuana are very separated and disconnected from the actual use of the substance. So there's not an immediate correlation between the two, even though there have been cases of marijuana psychosis and such that have caused violence from marijuana use, but it's not immediately connected as much. And I think law enforcement, they have a lot on their plates and maybe limited resources, so they're required to go, and target what they're able to target. So unfortunately, I think there's been a lot of leeway for marijuana use even in the state of Florida, even though it's not legal.
Gotcha.
Currently.
That makes sense. So Florida Family Action is recommending...
Florida Family Action and Florida Family Voice is recommending a no vote on Amendment 3.
No vote on Amendment 3.
Yes.
All right. Is there anything else you wanted to go over on this amendment?
That is it. Except I would say definitely recommend people to visit, for more information, visit www.no-on3.com. That's a website where you can be able to get more information and resources on how to oppose Amendment 3 and the dangers and the misleading lies that are happening that you need to be made aware of. So definitely, folks, research. Vote no on Amendment 3. So no-on3.com. No-on3.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.